Success, we talk about it, chase it, and admire it, but do we truly understand it? We like to believe that greatness comes from talent, intelligence, and hard work alone. That those who rise to the top do so because they were born different, gifted, determined, unstoppable. But what if success isn't just about who you are, but where you come from? In Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell invites us to look beyond the myth of the self-made person. He shows us that every success story, from the Beatles to Bill Gates, is shaped by hidden advantages, cultural legacies, and the invisible power of timing. That sometimes being born in the right place, at the right moment with the right opportunity, can change everything. Gladwell doesn't diminish hard work, he defines it. The rule of 10,000 hours, the relentless discipline of mastery. But he also reminds us that no one climbs alone. Behind every outlier stands a community, a culture, and a chain of circumstances that make greatness possible. This is not a story about luck. It's a story about context, about how history, family, and culture shape the way we think, the way we work, and the way we rise. This is daily audiobook wisdom. And this is Outliers, the story of success by Malcolm Gladwell, a journey into the hidden patterns of greatness and the extraordinary truth behind why some people succeed and others never get the chance. Introduction: the Roseto mystery. In a small town hidden among the hills of Pennsylvania, something extraordinary happened. People lived longer. Heart attacks were rare. Stress seemed non-existent. Doctors were confused, scientists intrigued, and the world had no explanation. This place was called Roseto, and what happened there would challenge everything we thought we knew about success, health, and human potential. When researchers examined the Rosetons, they expected to find perfect diets, superior genetics, or disciplined lifestyles. But they found none of that. Instead, they discovered something simple yet revolutionary. The secret wasn't in the food they ate or the genes they carried. It was in the way they lived. Families stayed close. Neighbors cared for one another. Community shaped identity. Connection shaped well-being. In Roseto, no one faced life alone, and that changed everything. This discovery shook the foundations of scientific thinking. If a community, not individual choices, could influence health so profoundly, then what other parts of our lives are shaped by forces we never notice? What if success, too, works the same way? What if achievement depends not only on talent and effort, but on timing, culture, opportunity, and the invisible advantages woven into our environment? This is the idea at the heart of Outliers. That success is not a mystery hidden inside extraordinary people, but a story written by extraordinary circumstances. That the seeds of greatness are planted long before the world sees the fruit. And that to understand why some people rise, we must look not just at the individual, but at the world that made them possible. This is daily audiobook wisdom, and this is the introduction to Outliers, the story of success. A journey into the hidden patterns behind achievement and the remarkable truth that success is never just personal, it is profoundly contextual. Chapter 1: The Matthew Effect. Success is not always about talent or hard work. Sometimes it begins with something as simple and as invisible as timing. In this chapter, Gladwell introduces us to a strange pattern. The world's best athletes, students, and performers are often born in the same handful of months, not by fate, but by opportunity. This pattern is known as the Matthew Effect, the idea that advantage, once given, multiplies. In Canadian hockey, the most elite players aren't just skilled. They are disproportionately born in January, February, and March. Why? Because the age cutoff for youth leagues is January 1st. A child born in early January is nearly a full year older, stronger, and more mature than a child born in December. And at a young age, that small advantage looks like talent. Coaches select the best, give more training, more attention, more ice time. The slightly older kids get slightly better, and soon the gap becomes real. This pattern repeats itself across classrooms, sports fields, and careers. The ones who seem gifted are often the ones who were simply allowed to start ahead. The world rewards early advantage as if it were innate ability. The rich get richer. The prepared get more preparation. The recognized get more recognition. This is the Matthew effect in action. Success grows where success has already begun. Gladwell's message is clear. Greatness is not just the story of exceptional individuals. It is also the story of exceptional opportunities. When we acknowledge this truth, we see success with new eyes, not as a solitary miracle, but as a system that can be shaped, expanded, and made more fair. And we realize that by giving more people early chance, support, and belief, we can create more outliers not by luck but by design. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 1, The Matthew Effect. A reminder that opportunity is not equally distributed, but understanding this is the first step to changing it. Chapter 2, The 10,000-Hour Rule. We love the idea of prodigies, people born with extraordinary gifts. But Malcolm Gladwell reveals a deeper truth. Greatness is rarely an accident. Behind the world's most exceptional performers lies an astonishing amount of practice, discipline, and time. This is the foundation of the 10,000-hour rule, the idea that mastering any complex skill requires around 10,000 hours of dedicated, focused practice. Gladwell takes us into the early years of the Beatles, long before they became the most iconic band in history. They weren't formed by fame or magic, but by grinding hours in small clubs in Hamburg, Germany. Night after night, they played 8-hour sets, pushing their creativity, improving their endurance, and shaping their sound. By the time the world heard them, they had already completed their 10,000 hours. Similarly, Bill Gates didn't just become a programming genius. He gained rare access to a computer terminal as a teenager, allowing him thousands of hours of practice before most people even touched a keyboard. The pattern is clear. Extraordinary talent needs extraordinary opportunity. Without early access, early practice, and early time, even the most talented individual cannot rise to greatness. And once the hours accumulate, quietly, relentlessly, skill transforms into mastery. Gladwell isn't saying everyone becomes great with enough practice. He's saying everyone who has become great has practiced more than we ever realized. The 10,000-hour rule reminds us that mastery is earned, not inherited. It is a quiet journey built in small rooms, late nights, and unseen effort. It is a reminder that greatness happens long before the world applauds. If you want to master something, your craft, your passion, your dream, the path is not locked. It is measured in hours, discipline, and devotion. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 2, The 10,000-Hour Rule. A reminder that talent opens the door, but practice builds the world waiting behind it. Chapter 3, The Trouble with Geniuses, Part 1. We love the idea that genius is destiny, that extraordinary intelligence automatically leads to extraordinary success. But Malcolm Gladwell challenges this myth head-on. In this chapter, he asks a powerful question: does a high IQ guarantee a high achievement life? And the surprising answer is no. Because beyond a certain point, intelligence stops being a predictor of success and something else takes over. Gladwell introduces us to Lewis Terman, a researcher determined to prove that the smartest children in America, the elite termites, would grow up to become the leaders, inventors, and world changers of tomorrow. These children had sky-high IQ scores, some among the highest ever recorded. But as the decades passed, something unexpected happened. Many lived ordinary, unremarkable lives. Some even struggled. Meanwhile, several brilliant minds excluded from Terman's study. People with lower IQs went on to win Nobel Prizes. The conclusion was clear: intelligence alone wasn't enough. Gladwell shows us that past a certain threshold, IQ stops mattering as much as we think. A person with a 140 IQ doesn't automatically outthink someone with a 130 IQ. What matters far more is something harder to measure: practical intelligence, social awareness, the ability to read situations, navigate power, communicate, negotiate, and adapt. This is the kind of intelligence that determines who rises, who connects, and who becomes unstoppable. Genius without social skill is isolated, but even moderate intelligence paired with social mastery can change the world. The trouble with geniuses is not that they aren't smart, it's that the world doesn't reward intelligence alone. Success requires a blend of intellect, opportunity, and human skill. Gladwell reveals a simple truth: being smart is an advantage, but being exclusively smart and nothing else is a limitation. Greatness belongs not to those who score the highest, but to those who understand how the world works. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 3, The Trouble with Geniuses, Part 1. A reminder that brilliance is only the beginning. What you do with it is what shapes your destiny. Chapter 4, The Trouble with Geniuses, Part 2. In the previous chapter, Gladwell showed us that intelligence alone cannot predict success. Now he takes us deeper into the story, exploring why some brilliant minds rise while others, equally gifted, struggle. The difference isn't in the numbers. It's in the world they grow up in. In this chapter, Gladwell introduces a powerful idea: practical intelligence, the ability to speak up, negotiate, read subtle cues, and shape outcomes, is learned, not inherited. And where it is learned makes all the difference. We meet two geniuses, Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, and Chris Langan, a man with an IQ so high it challenged imagination. Oppenheimer faced setbacks, made mistakes, and even committed acts that should have destroyed his career. Yet he survived and rose to power. Why? Because he knew how to navigate systems, speak with charm, persuade authority, and bend situations to his favor. Langan, on the other hand, struggled with bureaucracy, conflict, and communication. Not because he lacked brilliance, but because no one ever taught him the social tools needed to make his brilliance work in the real world. Gladwell explains that children from wealthy or educated families often grow up learning something priceless: concerted cultivation. They are encouraged to question adults, negotiate, express their needs, and treat institutions as partners rather than obstacles. Meanwhile, working-class children often learn natural growth, where they remain polite, quiet, and deferential to authority. These early lessons shape how individuals handle opportunity, conflict, and pressure later. In life, practical intelligence becomes the invisible advantage, the one that doors quietly open for. The trouble with geniuses isn't that they lack ability, it's that ability alone isn't enough. Success requires a blend of cognitive skill and cultural skill, intellect and confidence, brilliance and boldness. Gladwell reminds us that opportunity doesn't just come from what we know, but from what we've been taught to expect. The real lesson is this: talent must meet environment, genius must meet guidance, and potential must meet possibility. Only then does greatness emerge. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 4, The Trouble with Geniuses, Part 2. A reminder that intelligence lights the path, but practical wisdom walks it. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 5, The 3 Lessons of Joe Flom. A reminder that greatness isn't just built, sometimes it's placed in the path of those prepared to seize it. Joe Flom's story is not about raw genius. It is about conditions aligning: the right generation, the right struggle, the right kind of work. Gladwell's message is clear: success is never a straight line. It is a convergence of effort, opportunity, and environment, and when they meet, an outlier is born. The third lesson is demographic luck. Flom was born during a period of low birth rates, meaning schools were less crowded, opportunities more available, and competition less fierce. Being part of a small generation opened doors he didn't even know existed. Gladwell reminds us that even our birth year, something we never choose, can influence our trajectory in profound ways. Flom's brilliance mattered, but so did timing, culture, and circumstance. The second lesson is the power of meaningful work. Flom grew up in a world of immigrants, people who worked long hours sewing garments, stitching shoes, crafting goods with their hands. Their labor wasn't glamorous, but it was meaningful. It taught discipline, pride, and resilience. It taught that mastery comes from doing real, challenging work every day. That environment shaped Flom's mindset. He wasn't afraid of complexity or intensity. He embraced it. His success was born from a culture that valued craftsmanship over prestige. The first lesson is the importance of being born in the right place at the right time. Flom grew up in an era when Jewish lawyers were excluded from the elite firms, but that apparent disadvantage became an unexpected opportunity. While others chased prestigious corporate clients, Flom took the tough cases: hostile takeovers, proxy fights, messy battles that traditional firms refused to touch. When the economy shifted and corporate warfare became the norm, Flom's expertise, once undervalued, became priceless. His era shaped his opportunity. Joe Flom was one of the most successful lawyers in American history, a name that shaped Wall Street and transformed the world of corporate law. But his rise wasn't the usual American dream story. It wasn't built on privilege, connections, or perfect timing. It was built on three powerful, overlooked forces that Malcolm Gladwell calls the three lessons of Joe Flom. And together, they reveal how people become outliers not just because of who they are, but because of where, when, and how they begin. Chapter 5, The Three Lessons of Joe Flom. Chapter 6, Harlan, Kentucky. Success doesn't just come from the opportunities we receive. It also comes from the cultural legacies we inherit. In this chapter, Malcolm Gladwell takes us to a quiet Appalachian town called Harlan, Kentucky, a place where something seemingly small shaped generations of behavior and destiny. This is the story of how culture, even from centuries ago, still lives inside us, influencing the way we fight, the way we react, and the way we see the world. Harlan in the late 1800s was a town defined by conflict. Feuds between families, the Howards and the Turners, spiraled into cycles of violence that lasted for years. These weren't random outbreaks. They were rooted in a cultural legacy brought from Scotland and Ireland, the culture of honor. In this tradition, defending one's reputation wasn't optional, it was survival. A small insult demanded a big response. Every slight became a threat, every look a challenge, every confrontation a battle for identity. Gladwell shows how psychologists tested this legacy centuries later. They observed how men from honor cultures reacted under provocation. Their heart rates spiked, their bodies shifted into combat readiness, and their sense of pride ignited instantly. Even in modern settings, these ancient patterns remained alive. The lesson is profound. Our behavior is not just our own. It is shaped by the stories, struggles, and values passed down through our ancestors. Culture follows us. It shapes our instincts. It influences how we succeed and how we fail. The story of Harlan teaches us that understanding success requires understanding origins. Our cultural inheritance can lift us or limit us, strengthen us or trap us. Gladwell reminds us that we don't begin life with a blank slate. We begin with a history written long before we arrive. But awareness transforms legacy into choice. When we understand the forces that shape us, we gain the power to reshape them. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 6, Harlan, Kentucky. A reminder that success isn't only about what we do, it's also about the culture that lives within us and the courage to rise above it. Chapter 7, The Ethnic Theory of Plane Crashes. When an airplane falls from the sky, the world assumes the cause is mechanical failure, bad weather, or a catastrophic mistake. But Malcolm Gladwell reveals a far deeper truth, that many plane crashes are not the result of one dramatic error, but a chain of small missteps, human hesitation, and cultural communication patterns. This chapter is not about aviation alone. It is about how culture shapes the way we speak, the way we respond under pressure, and the way lives can depend on our ability to be direct when it matters most. Gladwell shows us cockpit recordings where pilots and co-pilots struggle with hierarchy, politeness, and communication. In some cultures, subordinates speak softly, use indirect language, and avoid challenging authority even in crisis. In the air, this can be fatal. When a co-pilot hints instead of declares, suggests instead of commands, tragedy can unfold. Gladwell breaks down real crash transcripts where small misunderstandings cascade into disaster. The most heartbreaking part? Many of these pilots were skilled, disciplined, and fully capable. What failed them wasn't knowledge, it was culture. The key insight is something Gladwell calls mitigated speech, the tendency to soften our words based on how we perceive power. When you're tired, stressed, or in danger, mitigated speech becomes stronger, not weaker. And in aviation, where seconds determine survival, this can turn communication into confusion. Airlines that once suffered high crash rates didn't improve by replacing planes. They improved by changing communication culture, flattening hierarchy, and teaching crews to speak with clarity, urgency, and authority. The ethnic theory of plane crashes is not a criticism of any culture. It is a revelation that our inherited communication patterns follow us everywhere, into relationships, workplaces, negotiations, and moments of crisis. Gladwell reminds us that success and safety require more than skill. They require the courage to speak clearly, the confidence to challenge, and the awareness that culture is powerful only when we understand how it shapes us. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 7. The Ethnic Theory of Plane Crashes. A reminder that clarity saves lives, confidence changes outcomes, and understanding our cultural instincts is the first step toward rising above them. Chapter 8. Rice Paddies and Math Tests. Why do students from certain cultures excel consistently in mathematics? Is it intelligence, schooling, or something deeper? In this chapter, Malcolm Gladwell travels across continents to uncover a surprising link between centuries-old agricultural traditions and modern academic performance. The answer begins in the wetlands of Asia, in the relentless, meticulous world of rice cultivation, where success depends not on luck, but on patience, persistence, and extraordinary attention to detail. Growing rice is nothing like growing wheat or corn. It is labor-intensive, precise, and unforgiving. Every step, planting, watering, draining, tending, requires constant vigilance, daily commitment, and disciplined routine. Generations of farmers learned that the harvest didn't reward the strongest or the fastest, but the most patient, the ones willing to work carefully, continuously, and without shortcuts. Over centuries, these values became cultural habits, shaping not just farming, but the entire mindset of the communities who lived by the paddy fields. Gladwell shows how this legacy influences students today. In countries shaped by rice agriculture, children approach math with the same quiet persistence inherited from their ancestors. They stay longer with a problem, try more strategies, and resist giving up. Math, Gladwell argues, is not just a test of intelligence. It is a test of endurance. Students who come from cultures built upon the ethic of steady, patient labor tend to excel because they see struggle not as failure, but as part of the process. The classroom becomes another field, the equation another season, the solution another harvest. The lesson is profound. Our success is shaped by the cultural stories we inherit. The traits that make great rice farmers, patience, grit, precision, persistence, are the same traits that make great mathematicians. Gladwell reminds us that achievement is not only about ability, but about mindset. And a culture that teaches perseverance plants the seeds of excellence long before a child ever touches a textbook. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 8, Rice Paddies and Math Tests. A reminder that the habits of the past become the strengths of the future, and that persistence is a legacy that outlives generations. Chapter 9, Marita's Bargain. What would you sacrifice for a chance at a better life? For Marita, a young girl from the Bronx, the path to success didn't come from privilege or luck, but from an extraordinary opportunity and an equally extraordinary cost. In this chapter, Malcolm Gladwell explores the KIPP Academy, a school designed to break the cycle of poverty through structure, discipline, and relentless effort. Marita's story becomes a powerful reminder that opportunity often comes wrapped in sacrifice, and that success is sometimes earned hour by hour, day by day. Marita wakes before dawn. She studies long after most children have gone to bed. Her days at KIPP stretch far beyond the traditional school schedule, filled with math drills, reading challenges, and intense focus. It is exhausting, it is demanding, and yet it is transformative. Gladwell notes that students like Marita aren't given shortcuts. They are given time, structured, purposeful time to practice, learn, and grow. The secret behind KIPP's success is simple. Recreates the extended, patient work ethic found in cultures shaped by rice farming, where steady effort over long hours builds mastery and resilience. But Marita's journey is not easy. She gives up sleepovers, free time, television, and childhood comforts, trading them for a future she hopes will be better. Gladwell asks us to confront a difficult truth. The path to opportunity is not evenly distributed. Children like Marita carry burdens that others never face. Yet despite these challenges, her determination shines. She embraces the discipline, the routine, and the hardship because she understands what is at stake. Her dream is not handed to her. It is earned through deliberate, disciplined effort. Marita's Bargain is not just about one girl. It is a story about potential, about what can happen when a child from a struggling neighborhood is given the right structure, the right support, and the right amount of time to grow. Gladwell reminds us that success is not fate. It is opportunity meeting effort. And when society gives children like Marita the tools they need, outliers are born not from privilege, but from perseverance. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Chapter 9, Marita's Bargain. A reminder that the future favors those who are given the chance to work for it and those who are brave enough to take that chance. Epilogue, a Jamaican story. Every story in Outliers has been about opportunity, culture, timing, and legacy. But in the epilogue, Malcolm Gladwell turns inward, sharing the story of his own family and the unlikely chain of events that shaped his path. This is a story about Jamaica, about lineage, and about how a single chance, offered at the right moment, can alter the destiny of generations. Gladwell reminds us that behind every success lies a story that begins long before we ever arrive. Gladwell tells the story of his mother's childhood, of a world shaped by colonial hierarchy, where opportunity was scarce and futures were often predetermined by race and class. But one day, everything changed. A scholarship, created almost by accident, opened the door for his mother to pursue an education she never dreamed possible. That one chance, that single moment of opportunity, allowed her to rise beyond the limitations of her upbringing, and eventually changed the life of her son, who would grow up to write this very book. Gladwell's own life is proof of his thesis. Outliers are not born. They are built through circumstance, history, and chance. The Jamaican story is a reminder that behind every successful person is a hidden narrative, a chain of sacrifices, cultural legacies, and opportunities that others created. It is a story about gratitude, about humility, and about recognizing the invisible hands that lift us. Gladwell urges us to see success not as the triumph of the individual, but as the triumph of many of those who came before us, who fought for us, who believed in us, and who opened doors we could not open ourselves. In the end, Outliers is not just a book about high achievers. It is a book about the world that makes achievement possible. And the Jamaican story closes that message beautifully. Success is a gift passed down, a legacy built over generations. And when we understand that, we stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and begin asking the more important question, "What made me who I am?" Because that answer holds the key not only to understanding success, but to creating it for others. This is Daily Audiobook Wisdom. Epilogue, a Jamaican story. A final reminder that greatness is never isolated. It is woven through time, carried by community, and shaped by the extraordinary power of opportunity. We've reached the end of Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, a journey through hidden patterns, unexpected advantages, and the quiet forces that shape greatness. What this book teaches us is simple and profound. Success is never the story of one person. It is the story of a world that lifts them, challenges them, shapes them, and prepares them long before anyone notices their potential. Behind every achievement is a timeline of opportunity, a birth date that mattered, a culture that shaped persistence, a community that taught resilience, a family that opened a door or fought to keep one open. Gladwell reminds us that outliers are not anomalies. They are products of context, proof that when the right conditions meet the right effort, extraordinary things can happen. So what do we do with this knowledge? We stop worshiping talent as destiny. We start recognizing opportunity as responsibility. We look at our own lives with new eyes, asking not just how we can rise, but how we can create the circumstances for others to rise with us. Because greatness multiplies when shared, and the world becomes richer when more people are given the chance to shine. Outliers teaches us that legacies are built, not inherited. That opportunity is engineered, not imagined. That success is a gift passed from generation to generation, shaped by moments of kindness, timing, culture, and effort. And now you carry this understanding forward. You have the power to recognize the patterns around you and to change them, for yourself, for the people you love, and for the generations yet to come. This has been Daily Audiobook Wisdom, a journey into Outliers, the story of success. Thank you for listening. And remember, greatness is not a mystery. Greatness is a story, and now you know how to write yours.